We are here in the temple of Sri Lord Ram, Sita Devi and Lakshman and Hanumanji, Shivji. By seeing them, I just remembered one joke which I want to share with you before I begin. There was a temple of Lord Ram in India, famous temple, in which there were deities of Lord Rama, as you see here, Sita ji and Lakshman ji. And in front there was also a small temple of Hanuman. So as you know, in India, Hanuman is very popular. And many people who worship Hanuman, they fast every Tuesday for Hanuman. And there are many temples of Hanuman, small in the villages. So in this temple, most people, especially the young people, they were going to Hanuman, worship Hanuman, and nobody goes to Lord Ram. So every day Lord Ram, he is standing there and he is looking and he is wondering what is going on. Why nobody comes to me, everybody goes to this guy. So one day there was a big crowd of young people, all young people. They're all crowding Tuesday and they're in queue to worship Hanuman. And Lord Ram is standing there yawning. So he saw that one fellow was looking towards him because temple was right in front. So he motioned him that come here. So this fellow was surprised that suddenly the deity was raising the finger, because usually you see they're standing quiet. So he was amazed, so he came. So Lord Ram started speaking to him. He says, why are everybody going there? Why nobody comes to me? So he says, well, they're worshipping your servant, he's your dear servant. So he says, what do you guys want actually? Why everybody is crowding around him? So he says, you see, these are all young people, they're all unmarried, and they're all praying to him for a good wife. So Ram said, that's very strange. He says, do you guys have any intelligence? So he says, what do you mean intelligence? We are all IT workers, we are supposed to be most intelligent. He says, no. He says, why is that? He says, this guy, how can he bless you for marriage? He himself is not married. If you want blessing for marriage, come to me. So that guy, logic appealed to him. He went and told everybody, so all the crowd came to him. So I feel something like that I have been asked to speak about parenting when I am not a parent. So, of course, don't leave and go elsewhere. Although I'm not a parent, but I have many students who are like children, same mentality, and I have to parent them. So I will speak on this topic. Parenting actually is a science and also an art. It is probably the only profession which is a combination of science and art. Usually science is separate, art is separate. But unfortunately, we take it lightly and we parent children, we become parents, neither knowing the science of parenting nor the art of parenting. And then we wonder what went wrong. So we have to have training in it. Just as you study science, you study art, and that needs some knowledge, then you can expect good children. So wherever I go, I always hear complaint. Many parents come to me asking what can we do for our children. They have no interest in God and religion, and they are busy with their iPad because that's their God. So I tell that it is not their mistake, because they are doing what you have programmed them to do. Whether it is programmed by you or it is programmed by their peers in the school, in the atmosphere. Because you have to consider that just as everybody knows about computer, so in computer there are two factors, two parts. One is hardware, other is the software. So a human being also has these two parts. There is hardware, the body, mind, and there is a software in the form of samskaras, the impressions, the programming which goes inside, which makes the person function or work. Only thing is that in case of computer, you get the hardware separate, you get the software somewhere else and you can put it inside. You can also reformat the hard disk, put another program. In case of human beings, it's a little different. Here the hardware and software, they grow together. So really speaking, parenting begins before birth. We usually think that parenting is after the child is born and when he's grown up, especially when he's become teenager, then we will do something and we will try to mold him. It's already too late. Because most of the 90% of the programming of a child is done by the age of 6 years. And especially when he's changing teeth. We are the people who have twice teeth. We have the teeth first time, and then they fall down and they come another one. And then they become permanent. So that is the time your programming is over. Then later in the life, you can only accept it. There's not much you can do about it. So this programming begins at the time of conception. Just as the child's life begins at the time of conception, both hardware and software, they begin simultaneously. And you may have heard that there are stories in our Puranas to this effect because our sages, they knew it already. You know the famous story about Abhimanyu. Right? Everybody probably knows the story that how he was caught up in the Chakravyuha and he was not able to come out because he knew only how to get inside and not come out of it. And that is because when he was in the womb of his mother, Subhadra, then Arjuna, he was speaking about Chakravyuha because he is a Kshatriya, what else they can talk? Like somebody is businessman, he comes home, he talks about business to the wife, children, because that's it in the head. So Arjuna was speaking about Chakravyuha to his wife Subhadra, and she was listening, but of course this is not some interesting talks. So she fell asleep. Like sometimes you give a lecture, half the crowd is sleeping. So she fell asleep when he was telling about how to come out. And therefore the child who was in the womb could only have the knowledge how to enter, break the chakra and get inside, but did not know how to come out. And that's why he was killed in this chakra womb. So this story tells us that child is learning even in the womb of the mother. And now it has been scientifically confirmed. They have done tests on this in the field of psychology, that how the child who is in the womb becomes influenced by the emotions of mother. If mother, the pregnant mother, is sad or dejected, then the child who will be born will also be like that in life, because that programming already happens inside. So if you want child, a good child, then you have to start the programming from the very beginning. You have to begin from the beginning. Otherwise it is too late. So there are many stories. Even Prahlad, Prahlad Nrsimhadev. Where did he learn this devotion, Bhakti Yoga? He was son of an Asura, a demon, Hiranyakashipu, who was completely against God. So he learned this when he was in the womb of his mother, because when Hiranyakashipu, before he terrorized the world, he went to perform tapasya in the Himalayas. And when he was doing austerities in the Himalayas, at that time the Devas, Indra, he came because he knew that the wife is pregnant. So he thought that this guy is such a big demon, he has a son, he will be another demon, and they are always troubling us. So he came and he abducted the wife and he wanted to kill her. He says, kill the wife, the child is killed, no more children. This is an opportunity. So when he was taking her away from the palace of Hiranyakashipu, then Narada met him on the way. And Narada said, what are you doing? This is such a shameless act that you want to kill a woman, and that to a pregnant woman. So he says, this is a big sinful act, and moreover the child who will take birth from her will be a devotee. So Narada took the mother of Prahlad, would-be mother, and the wife of Hiranyakashipu, and kept in her ashram. And there he programmed Prahlad. Actually his idea was to program, because Hiranyakashipu is a big demon, so he said, I will make his son himself against him. That is the best, right, technique. So there he was teaching him bhakti, and that's why Prahlad by birth he was a devotee. When his father asked him, what have you learned in the school? Because when he was 5-year-old he was sent to school. When he came home, his father was taking him in his lap, sitting on a big throne. Like parents are always curious and take great pleasure when the child goes to school. What did you learn? And if the child says something, then they feel very happy. So the father was asking, my dear boy, what did you learn? So he was thinking that he is going to say, I learned ABCD, something like that. So I learned Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. So Prahlad did not say anything like that. He said, well, what I have learned is that the goal of life is to become devotee of Krishna. So when Hiranyakashipu heard that, he thought, this guy is crazy, who is teaching him this? But first he did not take it seriously. He took it very lightly. He thought, he is a child. Maybe somebody has brainwashed him. So of course, it is a fact that somebody has brainwashed him, but that brainwashing was done 5 years ago, not now. So he called the teachers and he was angry at them, that what are you doing, you are spoiling my kid. So you are asking that how do you want to raise your children God conscious. Here was a child who was God conscious, father was worried about that. And this was not Kali Yuga, this was Satyuga. So you people are very great that in Kali Yuga you are thinking to have a child who is God conscious. In Satyuga this fellow got worried that my child is God conscious. So he told them that you teach him some atheism. Because in India we have one school of philosophy which is called Charvak. In Charvak they teach you how to be a good atheist. We have all types of school in India, so one atheist school is also there. They also have a philosophy, better than YOLO. These YOLO people know nothing about it. If you want to be a good YOLOite, read Charvak. So he sent him, then they asked him, where did you learn this? So he says, nowhere. So he said, you are putting our life in trouble. Now your father is angry at us. So he says, what can I do? So they tried to brainwash him. And they were teaching him atheism. So Prahlad was very smart. He will learn everything the teacher asked him. He will immediately repeat it. So the teachers were now very happy. And finally, we have programmed him to be an atheist. But then when he was called, after some time, father again got same thing. He was again patting the son and caressing him and said, "My dear child, what have you learned in the school?" So now he was thinking he will hear some atheistic slokas. But nothing like that, he again sang the same song. He said, "Sravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam," and again spoke about Vishnu Bhakti. So now father got very angry. He threw the child and threw him on the ground, and he called his servant. He says, "Kill this fellow. He's a snake in my house." And then of course you know the whole story, that they were not able to kill him. So why I am telling this story is that Prahlad also, he learned this while he was in the womb of his mother. So we think that we can bring up our child when he or she is born, but actually it already starts. So therefore in India we had a custom of doing samskaras. Garbhadhan samskara, then Punshvan samskara, Simantanan samskara. These three samskaras were done before the child was born. Then Jatkaran samskara was done after the child was born. And there were similar other ceremonies to bring a good child. Recently somebody experimented it. There's a lawyer in Supreme Court, Delhi, and he was speaking with his lawyer friends, and he was saying that you can actually program your son. So they said, "What nonsense you're talking." So he says, "It's true." He says, "I will tell you." He says, "You can even choose your gender of the child." So this is described in Ayurveda. In Ayurveda, there is one section about this. So he says, "I will prove it to you." He says, I will give birth to a genius kid." So he actually programmed his child, who is now professor at IIT Bombay. At the age of 14, he became professor. About 5 years ago, now he must be 20 or something like that. This was big news in India. That 14-year-old kid was a professor. He had students who were young, older than him. Among the students, he looked like a kid. So he has done his PhD and he was 13-year-old. He has completed his masters before that. So this is because he did everything. There are herbs prescribed, there are mantras, there are, whole programming is there. In fact, in our website, we have our Ayurveda website. JIVA also has JIVA Ayurveda. And in that we have one section where we call Ayurveda, where we have explained this process in brief. And there are some people who have used it. So we are also doing experiment with that. Of course, that is up to them how much they take advantage of it. So we are keeping little track of it to see what happens to these kids. There are already few of them. We are having an Ayurveda club. So because one of our ideas is to, bring our Vedic knowledge back into action, which people are forgetting, which was a very wonderful system for human life. So that is one thing which I wanted to say, that parenting is something which begins before a child is born. And mother has to play the biggest role in it. Because father only gives the seed. It is the mother who carries the seed and nurtures it. So therefore in India, mother is called the first guru. Mata hi prathamo guru. Mother is the first guru of the child. And therefore, many times people, they criticize Manu, they say Manu was against women. So Manu was not against. Manu says that mother is 1,000 times superior to father. Mothers can feel a little proud now. They say that Pitu, Mata Pitu Sahasrena Gaurvena Atirichyate. That mother is superior to father 1,000 times. And then he says, he gives the reason. that she is the one who carries the child in the womb. Therefore, it is her samskaras which are going into the child. So whether you are a man or a woman, you are a product of a woman. It is woman who gives birth to the whole society. And therefore women have the greatest role in parenting. It is very difficult for a man, single man, to bring up a child. A single mother can bring up a child. There are so many of them I know. They are living, they have a child and they are taking care. But you do ask any father to do it, he will get into trouble. There was one man, he was having a child in this, what do you call this? Friend. So he was going around, the baby is crying. And he's saying, Albert, keep quiet. Albert, keep quiet. So one lady was also there in the shops. She was going around. She saw the baby. And women, they are very fond of children. So she bent down and she was patting the child and saying, what is troubling you, baby? Albert, what is your problem? And she was saying, well, you really know how to take care of the child. And then she was asking to the child, of course child does not speak. She said, Albert, what is bothering you? So the man said, no, he is not Albert, I am Albert. So that is what a man can take care of. He is trying to keep himself cool. Then you probably throw him away. So this is a fact. This is not a joke. The fact is that man cannot take care of the child. It is mother who can take care. And it is her samskaras which go inside the heart of the baby. So therefore they have to understand this fact. Now of course nobody has time for it. People are saying our children, they don't listen. So that is not the flaw or defect of the children. It is not their mistake. It is because we who have programmed them like that. We have not given them enough time. We have not actually taken care of them. We have not planned them. We plan many things. But we don't plan that I want to have a child like this. So we do not conceive with a plan. So child happens. So Bhagavan ki kripa se ho gaya. So Bhagavan ki kripa to hai, this is God's grace, but you have the role to play in it. So it should be planned. As you plan to buy your house, as you plan your vacations. We plan vacations also, but we don't plan a child. So we plan everything else. We have pedigree of dogs. Right? We are very careful. Dhira has one parrot, Balaram. So he has a ring in one of the leg, and I asked, what is this ring? He says, this is to keep track of the pedigree. So we are worried about the pets' pedigree, dogs and cats and horses, right? But human beings, they can mix the way they like. That's why in India they had this system before, who can marry whom. This was to keep the children proper. So if you mix like grafting, then you don't know. If you mix haphazardly, then you don't know what comes out of that. So it was controlled. They had all this idea, but now you're talking about genes. So the sages, they knew it already. This whole Varnashrama system was actually based on it. It was very scientific. And if you read Ayurveda, you will be surprised that how much amount of knowledge they had. There is one part which is called Kaumara Bhritya. You should read that part. Charak Samhita, the book was written 2800 years ago. So at that time they knew this. And that is only a collection. Because Samhita means collection. He has collected from older books. It's a compilation. So many thousands of years ago they knew about all these things, and therefore they made this system of the sanskaras in parenting and education, so that when the child will grow up, then you don't have to worry about that he is not God conscious or he is not behaving well. That's why you see there were people like Bhishma. Can you imagine that Bhishma, he did not marry so that his father could marry? Who would like to do that? You will say, why you have to let him go to hell? I witnessed this. Once I was in America, I was visiting an Indian family. We were all sitting on a table. So this man was there, his son was sitting, young son. So he asked his young son that please get a glass of water for him. The boy said, why? You get up and get it yourself. He said it like, I was shocked. He said, why don't you get up and get it yourself? So this is the modern son. And Bhishma says that I will not marry because that girl whom he wanted to marry, the father of that girl said that you can marry my daughter only if only her son will become the king. And also later on. So Bhishma said, I will never become the king and I will not marry. And father did not say anything to him. He found out because he saw his father was not, he was looking a little sad. He fell in love with this girl. He did not have a wife. Bhishma's mother left. So he was without any queen, and he happened to see this girl on the bank of Ganga, and then he desired to marry her. But the father of that girl said, you already have a son, and I can give my daughter to you if her son becomes the king. So Bhishma, he went to this without telling his father, Shantanu, and took a vow that I will not become king and I will not marry. So then that's how his father got married. Same in case of Lord Ramachandra. Kekai asked a boon to Dasrath that Lord Ram should go to forest for 14 years. Actually, Dasrath never ordered Ram to go to forest. When he heard that, he fell on the ground. He never got up. It was such a big shock to him that his own queen is asking his such a nice, well-behaved, wonderful son to go to exile for 14 years. He could not believe this. It was such a shock. He could not imagine that such words could come from the mouth of his own queen for Lord Rama, whom everybody loved. The whole Ayodhya loved him. So when Ram heard it, he himself decided to go to exile. Dasrath did not say you go. Dasrath did not order him. Actually, Dasrath did not want. He was of the opinion that I don't give this boon to her. But he says, no, Raghukul Reet Sadachali Ai Prana Jai Parvachan Jai. He said, this is our family tradition. We don't tell lies. If we give a word, we give a word. So he decided to go. But Dasrath still told his chariot driver, Sumant, that you take Ram, since he is insisting to go, you take him around and in the evening to bring him back. But Ram did not come back. Now if something like this happens, what the son will say? You know what he will say. He says, that's your problem. Why shall I go? You are the one who gave the word, not me. Why shall I suffer for you? So why such people were born in India? It is not because of Kali Yuga or some other Yuga. It is because they were parented, they were produced like that. You know that Lord Rama was born, there was a yajna which was done, Putrashti yajna, to get him. So therefore the whole story of human life begins at conception. So there are instructions how the mother actually, the type of child you want, then you have to think of that. There was a queen whose name was Madalasa. So she was a very educated queen. She made all her sons turn into sages. Even her husband, who was a king, he got worried. He said, leave at least one who can carry on the lineage. So then she left one son. Otherwise, when they were child, she will sing songs to them about Vedanta, Upanishads. So when they grow up, that is their programming. She was programming them every day. So when they grow up, they all became renounced sages. Therefore it says, Nav lage Nav bhajne lagna sanskaro na anyatha bhavet. In India we make this mud pots. So first you make a mud pot and then you can make some design on it and then you cook it in fire. So whatever design you make at that time, that becomes permanent after it is cooked. After it is cooked, then you cannot put a design on it, nor you can remove. So a child is like that. It's like an uncooked pot. So whatever samskaras you give, then they become permanent. So as I said, that by the age of 6-7 years, then the pot is already cooked. So all the stories in our Shastra, they were there to give samskara to the children. Katha chalena balanam nitir tadiya kathyate. Katha chalena, by the means of katha, the stories, this niti, this knowledge was given to children, because children are fond of stories. So parents used to tell them stories, and this will create samskara in them when they grow up. Then this will have an influence on them. So therefore parenting, it requires some time. Now mother and father both work and child is taken care by the maid servant. So maid servant spends more time with the child than the parents. Then what do you expect when the child grows? Then they say, well, he is not obeying, he is disobedient. Then they say, well, teenagers are like that. Because there are theories in psychology, I have also studied that. But I was also a teenager, I never was disobedient to my parents. I never thought that what they say, I will not do that. I also went through teen life, but I don't remember that I ever disobeyed my parents. And I'm not saying it out of pride, but I'm really saying that now they do research. The research is right, because they're researching about the rotten cases. Like Freud, he did a lot of research, but he was dealing all with sick mind people. That's why his name was Sigmund Freud. Why his name was Sigmund Freud? Sigmund is a sick mind. So all his life he dealt with sick mind, and from that he got all this theory of repression and sex and this. And there is some truth in it, I don't deny it. But he never studied some clear mind. He had no idea. Unfortunately, he did not get chance to read Bhagavad Gita or any of the scriptures. Otherwise, he would have had another opinion. He was an intelligent person, very observant. But his observations are about people who are already sick. And then if you make your theory on the basis of that, then you are making sure that now people will remain sick. So previously people were repressing, now they are expressing. So you go from one extreme to another extreme, like a pendulum. So you are here, now you go there. But you are not in balance. Because the poor fellow did not know that there is something else. He only said repression is bad, that's right, but that is half of the truth. He understood the problem, he did not know the solution. The solution which he gave is very dangerous, and he is one person who is responsible for this Kali Yuga which you are now talking about. Because he has had the biggest impact on the human society in the modern times. He is one of the person in the history of humanity which has influenced human mind more than anyone else. Because it is his idea which are floating now, although we may not know that they are coming from him. So before that we had a different system. So now people are, because as people become teenagers, then sex energy becomes active, and it is a very powerful energy. then you don't know how to deal with it. So this is what kids do. And when this energy, in Hindi we say that Kam and Ram. So if your mind is fixed on Kam, which is lust, sex, forget about Ram. Then Ram goes out the window. So now Kam is that which has become popular. We had Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. So first was Dharma, then came Artha and Kama. Now first is Kama. Child is a product of Kama, not of Dharma. Previously child was a product of Dharma. He was produced for Dharma and with the principles of Dharma. Now he is produced out of Kama, then what do you expect or her to do? And then he sees only Kama all around. He absorbs. So you may think that children, they are very small, they don't know anything about. Actually they absorb all the emotions of the parents. Everything is going, all the program is happening. Even in the, as I said, even in the womb it is happening. What to speak when the child comes out. So previously the atmosphere was the atmosphere of Dharma. So then the children also became dharmic naturally, and it was easy to make them God conscious. It is, then they will like it because already the program is inside. Now there is no dharmic programming. All the programming is adharmic, all about Kama. This is what they are seeing in television. Even small children, because parents have no time, so then you give them some gadgets, iPad and all these things, then they are seeing these programs. So on the TV programs, two things are most common, sex and violence. So even children game, they're all about violence, killing, right? Chasing something, killing something. So these two things, this is what goes inside. So when they grow up, then they're violent and they are very much inclined to sex, and then next thing is drugs. So therefore, if we have to do good parenting and we want God-conscious children, then we need to spend time with them. And first of all, we have to become ideal. So phone call comes to the father, and then father tells to the child that you lift the phone and tell I'm not here. Then same father is telling to the child, be truthful. Right? We do this. So how the child is going to be truthful? You think he is fool or what? He is not watching? That you are telling him to tell a lie, and then you tell him that he becomes Satyavadi Harishchandra. So how he is going to become? It is not possible. So because ultimately he is the product of parents. Child is the product of the parents, and it is not only the physical body but the mind, the mental setup, mental concept, that all goes inside the child. All the genes are coming from the parents. So if we want them to be God conscious, then we have to be God conscious. Otherwise you can tell him that this is bad and this is good and this is bad and this is good. This does not have an effect on the child, because he sees contrary to what is being told. So therefore the best teaching, as they say that example is the best way to teach. Because when you have your good conduct, then that has an effect. Children have natural tendency to imitate parents. If mother is cooking, then the small child also wants to cook. If father is doing puja, then he also wants to do puja. So they have natural tendency to imitate. But they imitate not only the good things, but also the bad side of it. So if we want them to be good, obedient, God conscious, then we have to become that. But if we are not willing to do that, then we cannot expect them to do it. It's not possible. You can force it, actually you cannot force anything. So Chanakya, he was also a great scholar. He wrote Chanakya Niti. In that he has one nice sloka. It's one sloka but very profound. He says, Lalayet Panchavarshani, Das Varshani tu Tadayet, Prapte tu Shodse Varshe Putram Mitravad Acharet. He says that you fondle your kid till he or she is 5-year-old. And then for next 10 years, you restrain him. So now 15. Says once he is 16-year-old, then you treat him like your friend. Which means now don't try to just order, but make him understand as you will make your friend understand in a friendly way. So of course, in those days, 5-year and 15-year, they worked. Now our children are becoming smart much earlier. So now you have to reduce that. Now what used to be previously 16 year, maybe it is 10 year. Because they learn so much. So that is another thing, that previously a child had no other possibility of learning but from the parents. And there was no television, there was no internet, and even books did not exist like now we have. So whatever he learned from the parents, and therefore he was able to also respect them because he is learning from them. But now children are learning so many things not from the parents. They learn themselves. So therefore they are also not respectful to them. Sometimes they think that they know more, especially when they become teenagers. Then all teenagers think that they are smarter than the parents. So they don't want to listen, because if I am smarter than you, why shall I listen to you? They think that my father, my mother, actually they are old-fashioned. They don't know, I know so much. So this is because the ego is developing. When the baby is in the womb of the mother, then the ego of the baby is same as the ego of the mother. It is not separate. It is because it is just one unit. The pregnant mother, the child is just one unit. When the child is born, first of all it is a big shock to the child. That's why the baby cries when it takes birth. Secondly, the baby is not thinking yet that she is independent unit. It takes some time, months, for her to realize. She thinks that she is same as the mother. Therefore, many times small children, they speak in third person. That now baby is going to eat, now baby is going to do this. Because it's not, the I has not yet come inside. I is developing. And when one becomes teenage, then I starts growing very fast. And therefore they want to now demonstrate their I. And the way the I is demonstrated is by disobeying. Because if I am obeying you, then I am not different from you, I do just what you tell. But when I disobey, that means I am separate from you, I am independent. So this is one of the reasons that teenagers have a very difficult time. They also go through this difficult phase, and we should understand this, that now their ego is growing and they want to express it, and the way to express it is by disobeying. So this is also their problem. Therefore if they have been brought up nicely, they also go through this dilemma that on one side I have to obey my parents, on the other side I have the ego. It's not very clear in their head, but this I am analyzing it. So they feel a bit of dilemma, confusion. This is a very difficult age. They were pampered, and now when they grow up, they go into the outside world. There are many things which they see are different. In the childhood, every child thinks that my father is my God, my mother is worshipable. They think that they are perfect. when they grow up and their child also thinks he or she is perfect because the parents are also pampering the child. He does very nice and thinks a nice boy, very nice, right? My baby is very nice, my son is very nice. He always praise. But when he grows up and he's outside people are not praising. They find fault. So he feels very frustrated with that. He's not used to it. And then if parents themselves are having trouble, which is also very common these days, they are not getting along, they don't have good relation, then it is another confusion. And if they get divorced, then it is a very big impact on the child. So such children, then you cannot expect them. That's why they fall for drug and sex. Because this is the way to relieve your stress, to forget about everything else and get into your own world. Drug means I go into my own world because outside world is too troublesome for me. So just like an insane person lives in his own world, the drug also puts you temporarily in your own world and you are free. You can hallucinate, you can imagine whatever you like. Nobody is troubling you. So when stress is there in life, then drug is very common. So drug is very common, and then of course as a young person you also have a tendency to experiment with everything others are doing, you also want to do it without even knowing. And if you tell them not to do it, then they will definitely do it. There's an instance in Freud's own life. Freud was once in the park with his wife. He was living in Vienna. So he went to the park and they have a small child who was playing around. So the mother told the child not to go near the fountain, there is water, because he can fall in it and hurt. So he did not go. When they were talking, they were walking around and they are leaving, they came near the gate and the Freud said, "Where is the child?" So he says, "I don't know, he must be somewhere around." So Freud asked that, "Did you tell him not to do something?" So the wife said, "Yeah, I told him not to go near the fountain." He says, "Let's go, he must be there." So it was true, when they go there, he was playing near the fountain. So this is, as I said, that they have to express their identity. That I have my own identity and I just don't go along with you all the time. So this can be tapered down and this can be guided if we have given good samskaras. So now that of course is past. We cannot go back and do that. If you have grown up children, they have already taken birth, so it is useless to talk about all this. We have to see what can we do that now. So what is to be done now is that children these days, because they learn very quickly many things, you have to speak to them with love and compassion. And you have to give logic to them for everything. Because if you simply say, "Do this because I am telling this," they will not listen. It is not possible anymore. That mindset does not exist anymore. Previously it existed, because children were born like that. So parents tell, and parents are only telling because they have some welfare of the child in the mind. They don't have any other interest. So that is not the case. So now we have to speak to them in a very logical manner. That if you want them that they should not take drugs, then you have to explain to them that it is harmful to them only, that it is not going to benefit me, and give some examples of some people who have suffered. They may be contemporary examples. They can see that this is what will happen to you. And the child must have this faith that our parents are actually doing good to us and they are not trying to control us. So you have to make them feel that they have the freedom, and at the same time you have to guide them. If you make them feel that they are constricted, then even if out of fear or some other reason they may not speak to you or they may not argue against you, but inside they will not agree. So whenever they will get the chance, they will revolt. So you have to actually make them feel in their heart that you are their well-wisher. And that is only possible when you actually love them. And for that you have to spend time with them. You have to spend and explain. And for that you have to be educated yourself. And you have to change yourself. If you want them to be God conscious, you have to become God conscious. And then it will influence them. That is a fact. It is not possible that it will not have influence. Of course, they go out and there is a lot of influence from outside. And already the samskaras. Why is it that non-godly things have more effect on us than godly things? You can watch a movie, you can watch Ramayana, Mahabharata, so many things. They don't influence you so much. You watch some other movies and they have such a big effect. Why is that? It is because that thing is already inside. So what is inside you, that influences you immediately. So if there are godly samskaras inside and now you tell them godly stories or stories of great saints and devotees, it will immediately influence that person. He will think, yes, this is what I want to be. But if there are no samskaras inside, you go on telling them, it doesn't have much impact. So now we have to work very hard. So you tell them stories because children like to hear stories. So tell them nice stories. There are many books available in India, I don't know here, but in India there are books available of children who are very pious, God conscious. So if the children read these stories, there are also cartoon books and movies, many things are available at present. So you give this to them instead of they watching some other cartoons. Let them watch these kind of things. So more they watch it, more influence it will have. Because we have to create the samskaras which are not created, which should have been created. Now we have to create. So to create samskara, we have to do repetition. That's why in sadhana, in spiritual practice, we repeat every day, regularly. It is not a matter of just on some holy Diwali and some Ganesh Chaturthi, we go to temple and we do some puja and then this is going to create samskara. This does not create much deeper samskara if they are not already there. If they are already there, this itself is good enough. But mostly it is missing. So now we have to do some work for that. So it needs some patience and some time has to be given by the parents. And they have to become knowledgeable themselves in this. So then it is possible. It is still possible. But now it is a hard work. Since we have neglected it in their childhood. Because just like if you want to train a dog, so there is a saying in English that old dogs don't learn new tricks. So younger is the dog, easier it is to train. When he grows up, then difficult. Like a plant, when plant is small, you can bend it. Once it becomes a tree, it will break but not bend. So similarly, when it is small, then you can create the samskaras. Once it grows, they are already solidified. Now very difficult. Unless there are samskaras coming from past life or something, then he will hook on to it. So many times it happens that people go through all kinds of experience and then they come back to spiritual life. So this also because they actually have some samskara already. It does not happen by accident. It looks like that suddenly you read some book or you meet somebody, your life changes. It looks like an accident. There are no accidents in this life. It is because the person already had some samskaras from the past and now he or she meets suddenly somebody, then those samskaras become activated. So it is all a question of program. Your computer functions by the program and the type of program is inside. So that's what is going to act. So sometimes some program, they may be put onto a trash file. So they're lying there, but you can also bring out them from trash, right? You delete some email, go into the trash, you can also retrieve it. So sometimes things are lying in trash, and then you meet somebody, you read something, then that gets retrieved from that, and then you become active, then you can take to spiritual life. But what can we do, that is a different thing, that we have to do. We don't have to wait for such a thing. It may be there, it may not be there. So therefore, all this idea of satsanga, holy association, going to temple regularly, in the house doing puja, reading stories. Why in India we have so much literature available? So that you don't say, well, I already read it. Okay, read Mahabharata. You can read it for years. There are such interesting stories. And all the stories have meaning behind them. Right? Yesterday you were saying that you read the story, you want to go deeper into it. There are deeper meaning of each story. So you can explain those meanings to children, because the children are smart. They are inquisitive, they will be actually interested. If you just tell stories, then they think this is some old-fashioned story. But then you give meaning to it, which is relevant to them. And if children themselves can read and let them try to explain it, then that has a bigger effect. We run a school in India, we have 2,000 students, so we make them do this, that you analyze your own life, do swadhyaya. Instead of I telling you, you think and then discuss, give them a problem. That suppose you go to the market, you buy something, you pay, and the shopkeeper gives you extra money by mistake. You realize, what will you do now? So one thing is you just tell him that no, you should give money back. One other thing is let them discuss among themselves. And if he says I should give it back, you ask why. Why not take the money in your pocket? Let him or think. So when they will go through this process and they will make decision, this will create a samskara. Instead of you just telling them do this, don't tell lies. If you simply say don't tell lies, you say why? Because telling lies seems to benefit me. Right? So if in the house your child does a mistake, then don't immediately punish. Because if you punish, then you are making sure that he becomes a liar. We train them to become liar. Because suppose he breaks something, it's not that he is interested in breaking, it breaks. So then you shout. So then what will happen? The next time he makes a mistake, he will tell you lies. He will try to hide, because he knows that if my father comes to know, then he will shout. So now I am the one who is making him tell lies. So one side I am saying be truthful, other side I am actually programming him to tell lies. So if he makes a mistake and he comes and tells you, you reward him. You give him 10 rand. Okay, you are telling me you made a mistake and you are telling me, I give you 10 rand. Every time you make mistake, I will give you 10 rand. So this what will this do? This child will never tell lies. But instead of that, what we do is we punish. So then we make sure that he is going to hide from you. So this is what you have to consider, these factors, that what I am doing, if I am getting angry at my son or daughter, what is this actually going to do to her? Is this going to rectify her behavior, or she is now, because they have intelligence. Nobody wants to be shouted. So these are the factors you have to consider. If you want them to be God conscious, truthful, then it has to be explained, why shall I be God conscious? What is the advantage? Because everybody wants to do something by which you can enjoy. That is the mantra these days. From right childhood we are telling children enjoy, right? And then we want them to be God conscious. So you are one who is making them atheistic, because becoming God conscious they don't see any enjoyment. There doesn't seem to be any enjoyment coming in. They see enjoyment in other things. So you have given the samskara to enjoy, not to serve, not to love, not to be cooperative, not to be obedient. We have not given. Right from whom? Did you enjoy this? have this and enjoy. Birthdays they celebrate, enjoy. The whole teaching is now enjoy. And then you want them to be religious, impossible. So we have to see what we are doing to them. You have to study psychology. Parenting means you have to know the psychology. What influence it is going to have on the child. It is not an easy job. And especially now when there are no joint families. Because now everybody has to learn it fresh. Previously people lived joint families, so young boy gets married, has a wife, they don't know much about it, but then they have their mother, father, their grandfather. They have gone through the process, they will teach them. Now that facility is not available. Because now parents, old grandfather, they are in old age home, somewhere watching TV. So now the young couple does not know anything about parenting. Then they go to internet. And internet you will see all, you will not read all these things what I am saying. Which you will not find. There you may find some psychological things which they are experimenting. And as I said, the experimentation are done with sick people. So it's a difficult job. That's why many people opt not to have children these days. It's such a headache. But it is also a great pleasure if you can do this nicely and you have nice kids. It is a very big satisfaction in life to have them. So this is in brief I wanted to say. I don't know if it makes sense to you. As I said, and the joke, I am like Hanuman. So I may be the wrong person speaking about it. But I hope I conveyed something about it. So if anybody has any question, you can ask. Yes.
One comment first, and then a question.
Please.
But no comment back on the comment, right? You said mother's samskars are more entrained in the child. So the child turned out to be rotten is the mother's fault. just starting there. But one of the...
I don't need to comment on that. There are many... and you better be careful when you go home.
Okay, no, on a serious note, a lot of the questions the children ask, especially about religion, we as uneducated or ignorant parents, because we don't really know much about our religion as well.
That is a big problem.
We go to the internet and there's 5 different sites telling you 5 different reasons why you do something. You pick one and you explain it to the child because it makes more sense to you. And then the child Googles it and then asks you about the other 4.
Yes.
And then you stump. That's the first thing. The second thing is also, you go and ask a priest. And in South Africa, we have very few priests, we got lots of crooks. They will give you stories that make sense to them or that you will accept. And then the children ask you for logic behind it. And you stump. And then the main thing we learn here is we must never question a priest, must never insult a priest. But most of these guys are not really priests. They're just pujaris that learn one act and then they bullshit the rest of it. So, how do we give children answers? Where do we find the source for these answers? And I know one of the things you're going to say is we should learn our scriptures and learn our religion. But it's a bit late when the children are asking us now and we don't know these things. So where do we get the source
So
of
this is
knowledge?
a very good question or very good issue you have raised. The thing is that this situation which we are in, we have created it over time. We cannot blame priests. We are the one who have created such priests. Because previously priests were educated. But then people were also educated. So then it was not possible for an uneducated person to become priest. You understand? Because common person also had good knowledge. And if priest is making some mistake, then they will question that this is not the way. So then he has to be very careful, he has to know. But now what has happened that we are only after making money. And we are after making money, priest is also after that. So he also does not study because he says he knows that there is no need. These people need some services, I do, I get money, why I have to study? So if you start questioning them, then they will be forced to study. You understand? But we stopped questioning. We are all, disrespect is one thing, questioning is another thing. I also agree that we don't disrespect a priest. But that does not mean that I cannot ask him questions. Even Arjuna is asking questions to Krishna. Who is God? I mean, who can be a better, respectable person than him? So Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, in 4th chapter, he says that this knowledge which I am giving you, I gave it to Sun God. So Arjuna immediately asked that, what are you saying? You and I are of same age. Katham etad vijaniyam. That how do I know that you have spoken it to Sun God? Because your Arjuna's age and Krishna's age, they are almost same age. Not much difference. So then Krishna explains. So that means he dared to ask him Krishna. And right from the beginning he is questioning. He did not swallow everything just because it is Krishna speaking. So this is our custom. If you read any of our scriptures, they are all question answer. You read the Upanishads, you read Mahabharata, you read Puranas, all question answer. That means that custom in India was to question. Krishna is saying this very clearly. He says, Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Updekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshana. That you approach a teacher, a guru, a priest, because priest is also like guru. So he says, you pariprashna, you ask. And not only prashna, prashna means question, pariprashna means question from all sides. Don't leave. So questioning is the basis of our religion, philosophy, dharma, whatever you call it. Because that's how Bhagavad Gita begins, with a question. It begins with a question. Upanishads, there are questions. You read Mahabharata, question. So you question them. But we stopped questioning. Now priest comes, we are saying, how long will you take to do it? Can you do it a little faster? So that priest is happy. I will give you more dakshina if you can finish it fast. So then why he has to study? But if you question him, why are you doing this? Why do we have Ganesh here? Why do we have Shiva here? What is the meaning of this mantra? Then what? He will force to study. So we are the one who have created uneducated priests. And now we have problem because the children don't listen. We may come with little older generation, we were still more obedient and we listen, but new generation is not like that. So now if you want them to have any God consciousness or any respect for our dharma, it is only by making them understand logically. Otherwise there is no chance. They won't listen because they are listening so many things which are contrary to what we teach them. So unless we prove to them that actually what you are studying in science, our dharma already knew it, then they will think, well, there is something in it. Then it makes sense. So many times some learned people also come to dharma because they see that there is a very profound knowledge in it. But for that, somebody has to know. So we have to create this type of priests, and that may take time. But again, as I said, we have to spend time. But if I don't have time, then priest also has no time, and children have time to do what they want to do. So this is the situation at present.
So, sorry, where do we get information in the incident to answer the questions?
Where you get, difficult to say for me because I don't know anybody here. Maybe there are some people who know. I only know Dhir Lalit. Maybe you can approach him. He can answer. I can also answer, but I don't live here. You can write me email. willing to spend time and answer if it is helpful to people, because that's my seva. That's what I live for.
Chaitanya Babaji. At what age are children no longer children? You know, we hold, sometimes we can overdo it, and they can be 20, 25, 28, still living at home, and we're treating them like they're kids. How do you know when is the appropriate age to let them choose their own path, live their own journey?
That varies from child to child, because there is a physical age and there is a psychological age. So most people, they stop growing at the age of 13. So many of people who are sitting here also, they may have their physical age, whatever, 50, 60, but psychological age may be 12, 13 years old. There are many like that. So you have to see what is psychological age, and accordingly you have to deal with that.
Are the children that are born to a married couple, are they predestined? So is that karmic? Are those the children that we meant to be born with? And what role does samskara play in that? So for instance, you spoke about Vrindavan samskara, which is done before, and then the other ones are done after, like Samudaya and Javagan. Does that change? Are the children that will be born predestined and already fixed? And if that is fixed, then does it improve the quality, so to speak, with the samskaras?
So what do you think? I gave lecture yesterday and you were there. What do you think is the answer? Instead of me answering. Actually, I already answered it yesterday. Is there anybody here who can answer it? Yes. So
It's the karma of the parents and the karma of the child that brings them together.
yes, but what about the other part he is asking?
What is the other part? I think get the question.
Samskaras, does it play any role? Because karma is already predestined. This will happen.
Karma is what you have to, you gave the example of 3 types of karma. The karma that you have to pay in this lifetime, you can influence.
Yes.
So some scars and anything that you do that's positive will either cause something not to happen, or if it happens, it wouldn't affect you further, or it'll happen in a lower tone than what it should have happened. So there is an effect on what you do in this life, that is your current karma, that you add to whatever you should have paid for.
Yeah, good answer. You see, you understand one thing, that what is karma, which we are saying past karma, that was also an action you did at that time, right? So if that action influenced your life, what you do will also influence. So therefore, you consider that our life is based on two wheels. And one is the past karma and one is the present action. Past karma and present karma, both is what give you the result. For example, if there is a seed, suppose you take, say, tomato seed. So tomato seed is like karma, that it will only give you tomato plant. But what kind of plant, whether it will be good or bad, how much fruit, that also can be changed by how much water you give, fertilizer you give, the environment. If you plant it in too cold weather, it may not even fructify. So that is the samskara part. So the karma part coming from past is that it is like a seed. And now how you deal with it, that is the samskara. So both are influencing. So of course now tomato is not going to become potato. But you can influence it up to a certain extent. So that is the role of the samskara. Okay. Any other question? Yes.
No, go ahead. You said we create liars by punishing the child when they tell you something wrong they've done. But have you put a reward system that every time they do something, you want to pay them. They'll keep on winning. How do you stop that? The kind of money we keep like the priest.
That's a very good argument. Because children are very smart like that.
That's what I do.
I read a joke like that. That there was a child and he has a birthday. So one relative gave him a drum. So now when he's got the drum, then he plays it. So it disturbs everybody. So they give him money to keep quiet. So then he wants to play it more so that he can make money. So that relative came and he visited, so how are you doing with the drum? He says, I'm getting rich. So he said, have you become so expert that people are, he says, no, they're paying me not to play. He says, at night, my grandfather, he pays me so that I let him sleep, and in the daytime, my parents pay me so that I don't disturb them. So I don't touch it, and I get money every day. So that, of course, is too clever for children to do that, and that we have to take care of also, that they don't do something like this. When I meant you reward them, I basically meant that you don't punish them. Rewarding, I just gave an example. You don't really have to give reward like that. But it means that you don't punish and make them understand. So that they don't do it again. Tell them that it is harmful to them or to you, it is a loss to the family, they break something. Because they are not also so stupid that they will not understand.
Two questions. One, we're living in a society that's based on consumerism. Happiness is out there, and constantly carrots are being dangled and we are chasing it. So if we are reinforcing that in the methodology of bringing up the children, are we not also making them fall into that consumer society?
Reinforce what?
You do this, you get that, you do this, you get that. Should
No,
we not?
that I already said that we don't have to do that,
Yeah.
because then that becomes the motive of doing it. What I said is that you study the psychology, and like I said that when you punish, then that also makes the child think that next time I make a mistake, then I want to hide it, or I want to tell that I did not do it. So this is how the child reacts. So then you have to see that if he does that, then instead of getting angry, you make him understand that please do not do this, this is not good. So this way he will not become scared and become hypocritical and start telling lies. Of course, if you start reward like people do, if you come first, then you will get this reward. Then also we are breeding corruption. Because then what happens, that the tendency is that now I only want the reward and not go through the process, not of doing it. That's what corruption comes. So that carrot and stick technique is obviously for a person who cannot understand anything, but you want their intelligence to grow. Otherwise they will remain only at that level. This is the easiest way you do with animals also. That's how you train animals. Because they cannot understand anything, but a child's intelligence can grow. So you also have to, you may do it in the beginning, but you have to get out of this and make them understand that this is good for them. Not just giving reward, which only makes them greedy for that. And that will bring another problem. So basically you have to make them understand that what we are trying to do to you, or what we want you to do is which will bring good to you, not for me. So this has to be inculcated.
Can I just ask a second question? Previously, they say people are living longer now and that, and but we see children are maturing at a younger age, and sometimes as parents we are forcing our children to actually grow up quicker because life is short, in one sense. So my question is, should we encourage children to be children, or should we actually be pressurizing them to mature and fit into the society, or should we be changing the values of society?
No, you should not pressurize. Everything should be natural. Because if you pressurize, you are already creating trouble for them. It's like you are trying to force 2 liter of milk into a 1.5 liter pot. So that's already going to create trouble. Let them grow naturally. What is the hurry? Why we say that life is short? Where are you going? You have to live now. Where do you want to go? So, should not force me. I know that there is a lot of competition in the society and children are under great stress because of that competition, but that's not good. So you teach them to relax. Yes.
In the previous talk on the farm, you mentioned that it's unhealthy for us to praise our children because then it becomes an expectation that every time they do something good, they're going to be praised. And then when they're out in society, that doesn't happen. How do you motivate our children if you're not going to praise them? Because you said two sides of it. One is it feeds the ego.
That's what I've been saying from my very beginning, that you have to make them understand. Of course, when they are very small, they don't have this much understanding. But when they have grown up a little bit, these days children grow up very fast. So you have to make them understand that this is good for them and not simply praise. Because praising brings a lot of expectations and you become attached to that praise which you are not going to get. Then you become depressed and frustrated. And then you become very egoistic. You think you are superior and another is inferior. All these problems come because of that. So you also have to make them learn humility and not just become egoistic by praising them. Humility is something which now people do not know what it means. Now I think it is only existing in the dictionary. If at all, maybe they have removed it, I don't know. Because some words are added in dictionary, some are also removed if they are not used anymore. So I don't think you hear the word humility anywhere. You hear courage, competition, enthusiasm, brave, all these things, but humility you never hear. So that is an attribute, a very great attribute, which is very much missing at present. So that should also be taught to children, which was actually the foundation of Vedic culture. In Vedic society, it was one of the very fundamental characteristics which was taught. Now we consider this as a weakness. If somebody has humility, people think he is sissy. He is a weak fellow. So you have to be proud, you have to boast. When you write your CV, then you have to flaunt all your credentials, even what you don't have. And better you can speak about it, then more chances are you of success. So this is material success. This is not going to give you peace of mind, happiness, stability, equanimity. It is impossible. So we have to also sacrifice maybe some material success to have this kind of success. But when we are hooked up onto material success and that we want, then it becomes a little bit dilemma, whether I should be humble or not. Humility is also a very good attribute. It may not pay immediately, but it will pay in long run. But as he said that we are very much interested in immediate fruit and we are impatient. So being patient, being humble, being firm in your values, this is something which is missing these days. Because consumerism means that you consume and for that you need money. To get money you have to compete. To compete you have to tell all kinds of lies in your CV. You have to show you are better than others. You have to prove it to others. Whether you are or you are not, that doesn't matter. So this is how life is running. A lot of lies around us. So that truthfulness doesn't seem to exist. That is not considered as a value these days. Although everything runs on truth only and on faith. If you work for some company, you think that the guy is truthfully will pay you. You have this faith, otherwise you will not work. You go to the bank, you put your money, you have faith. then they will not cheat. But yet, we tell all types of lies in a very subtle manner also. Even in our dealings with our people whom we love, respect, even with them we do this. It becomes a habit. Unknowingly we do that. So this is what we have to practice ourselves and also teach to children. But then again, argument comes, if I do that, then I will be left behind. Then you have to see whether you want to be in this rat race. You can also live simple life. But then if I have the idea that my neighbor has this kind of car, then I also have to have that. If he has a house like this, children have this. They go to somebody's house, then they see they have a bigger TV screen, then they come home and Papa, we should also have this. And then they see all the ads about it. That if you have the screen, how nicely the family is sitting and watching it, and they don't understand. They get easily brainwashed by that. So you have to constantly work on them because others are working constantly. You see, your children are constantly being brainwashed wherever they go, on the road, in the school, other place. So we have to also give some protection to them from that. It's a tough job now. Very tough job.
Last one, right?
Okay.
First year on your CV is called poetic license.
What is that?
Poetic license on your CV. Exaggerate a little bit.
Yeah.
No, in one of your talks you said, in the past the focus used to be on the clan or the tribe, then it became the family unit, and now it's individual.
Right.
How do you take the values back to at least the family unit? Because that's what's breaking down, and that's what creates our communities.
So that is your job, that you have to create bondage in the family. You see that bondage is broken by consumerism. They want to break it. This is their principle. And more they make the family unit weak, then more they can sell. So you have to create this bond strong. You have family together, eat together. They say that the family which eats together stays together. So you have to give time to these things. Have family functions, family union, so that people start relishing that. Have kirtan together once a week, something like that, so that they relish it. Because they are doing the similar thing. Why people are going for some, what is that, musha, so?
Yeah, Musa.
Right?
So,
So that is also socializing. Besides listening and joking and laughing and being together, it's like everybody feels we are together. So that feeling has to be given, which is very much missing, and the whole consumerism works against it. So we have to know these things, how the society is functioning. We have to understand it, and then we have to be on top of it.
sorry, I know I said last question, but tying to what the Bhini asked about earlier on, about children growing up. Nowadays, 18 years old, they want to leave the house.
Yes.
Now, is that healthy? Is it not healthy? I mean, when they leave, they're open to so much more influence.
It is healthy if they are able to take care of themselves, if they are educated. But they are not. They want to leave because they want to experience all this material life. What will they gain from that? I mean, anything tangible which comes out. It is the same, they enjoy. Because why they want to leave? They want to enjoy. They feel restricted in the house because they didn't feel that this is enjoyment here. That's why I'm saying if there is a bondage, then you feel happy. Ultimately, they will go out and then they will be with somebody, because nobody wants to be alone. That's why you have Facebook. Why Facebook is so popular? Because you want to be with somebody. Take a selfie, immediately send it. So this is because in the family it is missing. Otherwise, it is much more pleasurable to be with your own family, people sitting together talking. Even if you are talking some mundane thing. But that is missing these days. People don't have time for this. People who are rich, they are busy making more money, and then they give money to their children, then go and do something so that you don't bother us. So then obviously they get into that habit. Okay? Thank you.